live now. And we're live. Hey guys, welcome to today's show. We have with us an amazing lady. Her name is Laura Aversano, and we are going to be getting into her new book and her work in general. And yeah, let me just play the intro and we'll get started. Okay, great. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Typical Skeptic Podcast. This is episode number 2094. And again, I have with me my guest today, Laura Aversano. And Laura is a gifted medical intuitive, ancestral empath, and the author whose writing carries a spiritual resonance that unlocks deeper layers of the soul. Today, we'll explore how the mystical and ancestral intertwine with her through her work. And I'd like to give her a big warm welcome to the show for the first time. Laura, thank you so much for coming on. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and honestly, like you have experience in plant medicine as well, right?
Yes, I do.
And you're a shaman as well?
I don't use that word. Other people might use that word with me or for me. I use the word medical and spiritual intuitive and ancestral conduit.
I love that. And then it also says here that you've written a book called Spiritwalker, and you have deep roots in Sicilian mysticism. My mom's part Italian, so I know I have friends who are in like the Strega tradition who they have Italian heritage, and they know
witches.
Yeah. So what is the Sicilian mysticism? I'm so curious in talking about that.
Basically, these abilities run in my family. My mother has been a seer, and her grandmother before that. There are many members of my immediate family who are also seers. When my mother was little, she used to traverse the streets of Sicily, praying litanies that would just come through her, and people would follow her as she said her prayers.
Wow, that's so cool. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, that's interesting. Like, and then it kind of just did your grandma or your mom tell you about it when you were a kid, or did you just have natural abilities?
I had natural abilities when I was little. I used to communicate with those beyond the veil, and I was so grateful to have a mother that I can share my communications with and share with her what I was experiencing. And she really held space for me and supported my evolution with my abilities. She didn't stop me from having them.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very grateful.
Yeah, that's amazing. So did your mom or your grandmother do anything like tea leaf reading? That was kind of like a more old school way to psychically read, right?
Well, mom is still alive, and she is an incredible tarot card reader and seer. And I dabble in tea leaves and tarot cards and coffee grinds, but I don't do that as part of my practice. I do that for friends. As part of my practice, I focus mostly on medical and spiritual intuition and ancestral work.
Well, tell us about, well, before we get into the medical intuitive part,
Sure.
like, let's talk about the ancestral empath. What does that mean? I know what it means to be an empath. What does an ancestral empath mean?
Sure. I actually think the medical intuition and ancestral work are combined. So when a client calls me and I ask them to present the challenges that they're currently facing. If they're facing health challenges, emotional challenges, psychological challenges, and or spiritual challenges. And I will look at their ancestry, their lineage behind them, and I'll look at the miasms, the epigenetics, the imprints that are left in their DNA and how their DNA expresses itself and how they respond. And many times I will try to look for the origins of these miasms and help them find ways to balance them.
Wow, that's interesting. And the epigenetics usually show a lot about a person, usually?
I think they do. I remember once, and I tell this story, I was in a clinic and I was walking by a patient there, and they were getting red ozone, which is where blood is taken out, put through ozone, and just put back inside the body. And I remember walking by this lovely elderly gentleman, And I looked at the blood in the bottle, and I started to tell him about his family. I can see the imprints in the blood. I started to share about his grandfather in a war and what his mother was like and what his father was like.
Wow. You can read that all from one can you see that through me now, or do you have to do like research on someone?
I did not need to do research, but I'm not looking at you that way right now.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean, I wasn't like trying to put you on the spot or anything like that. I just got curious. I got naturally curious. You know what I mean?
You know, in the morning before I start with clients, I have a meditative practice, and so I can get to that space where I can work with spirits and people.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and do you receive direct transmissions from the spirit realm? Would you say?
Yes, since I was a child, absolutely.
And tell us about that. Like, what was it like when you were a kid? Like,
when I was little, I thought I was having fun. I thought it was a playful experience for me. At the same time, there might have been some scary experiences or frightening experiences. What I started to notice is that when I would share these things with friends in Catholic grammar school, I began to see that perhaps I should keep quiet. They weren't well received. I would talk about prior incarnations at about 6 and 7 years old. I would talk about Edgar Cayce at about 7 years old. I would talk about psychic abilities. And I learned at a young age to keep that close to home.
Yeah, because you probably learned that other kids weren't like you, right?
I learned that very quickly, Rob. Absolutely. And I saw the reactions on their faces. And so again, I just kept it to the home front.
Yeah. Okay. So as an ancestral empath, how did the ancestral traumas and gifts manifest in people's lives, would you say?
How do those gifts manifest? Or are you talking about the patterns manifest? I think
The patterns.
the patterns.
Yeah.
Sure. They can manifest in many different ways. They can manifest on a psychic level. They can manifest on a health level, a physical level. They can manifest on a spiritual level. They can manifest on an emotional level. For instance, I remember, and this is, there are a few things that I can share with you, a few case studies that are at least 20 years old. I remember once having a client, and I saw her come into my office, and this is when I had a practice in another state. And she walked in, and I saw shackles around her feet, and I saw an ancestral spirit from her family that was standing behind her. And she presented with various retroviruses that many of us happen or have, and she couldn't, with all the modalities that she was working with, she was stuck. And I could tell that those miasms wouldn't shift until that spirit, that ancestral spirit in her lineage, would evolve and move to another realm. And that took a certain amount of work. So that ancestral spirit was holding in her physical patterning. And until that spirit shifted, that health pattern wouldn't shift. And I've seen this often. And I remember years later, after I'd left my practice in that state, I remember years later going back and visiting friends in that area and running into her. And the spirit wasn't behind her, the shackles were gone, and her health was much improved.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really amazing. Wow.
I have more stories, quite a few.
I'd love to hear them. I know, seriously, this is really interesting. Okay. I want the audience to get a good idea as for like what you do, you know?
Sure, thank you. So that's one instance where it can affect somebody on a physiological level. There was another time when a woman came to my office, and her daughter was incredibly psychologically stressed and experienced or was struggling with bipolar disorder. And I remember this was the first visit and the first time I had met them, they were referred to me. And I walked into the room, and this young girl was a teenager, and I asked her to wait. I stepped outside with the mother, and I said to her, I need to ask you, is there a history of sexual trauma in your family? And her mouth just dropped, and she said, yes, why? I said, is this something that you keep secret? You keep secret, your sister keeps secret, your mother? I said, because it seems like it's pretty prevalent. And she said, why are you asking? I said, because there's a man standing above your daughter who is predatory in nature and letting me know that he hurt the family in this way. And it was influencing, literally, through spirit attachment, her daughter's psychological and mental well-being.
Wow. Wow.
And one way besides traditional means, I have no problem with people utilizing traditional medications if they need to. But what the family needed to do is make a relationship with that secrecy, because secrecy festers and really creates chemical and metabolic imbalances in the body.
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Wow, this is amazing. So you're like a, and how long have you been doing this for? Would you say, like, did you kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Did you kind of like harness your gift as you grew up, and then did you always do this your whole life?
Again, I communicated with the spirit world as a child, and then during my teenage years, I did not, even though my love of the occult was very much in the forefront of my mind, something that I shared with my mom. And that at the age of 19, I had a healing crisis, and doctors could not figure out what was wrong. And again, my mother comes into play. She brought me to this incredible psychic healer in Connecticut. And he put me on the table and he said, "Do you realize how gifted you are? And you're just going through an initiation." And it was from that point on, I had left college, traditional college, I think my second year of study, and started to study integrative healing and nutrition and counseling.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. And then how did your journey with Native American plant medicine and shamanic healing come into fold?
Well, that was part of my healing crisis. And so it took me a while to recover from that healing crisis, but I started to notice as people would pass by me, their illnesses would just go through my body. So that's when my abilities started to expand. Their illnesses would work through my body, as well as remedies would start to go through my body. So an illness would happen, and then I'd see a remedy over a child or over an adult. I'd see a food source, or I'd see a plant source. I'd see an herb source. I'd see various remedies, even including sound or visualization. And so, with every ailment, whether it was psychological, physical, or spiritual, remedies seemed to just literally appear around me for that. And some of those remedies were plants. And along with those plants came the elementals and came the spirits of those plants. And so that was my introduction, so to speak, into shamanism and plant medicine, and then formal study in shamanism.
Yeah, no, you have a new book out, right? With Inner Traditions. Like that's how I think I got acquainted with you, because like they send me a lot of interviews. I interview a lot of their authors. Did you want to tell the audience a little bit about your newest book and what it's about?
Sure. It's called The Divine Nature of Plants, and I'm very pleased and proud to say it's the third iteration. So it seems to be a favorite. And it shares a story in my own life of how I work with plant spirit medicine. And it also shares the 30 plants that I work with and grew here in my backyard. And there's a story around that too. The initial publisher was, the first iteration was Swan Raven. And I remember visiting their property down in North Carolina. They invited me there because they wanted to meet me and give me the space to work with the plants. And I remember sitting on their property. It was just amazing. And I was communing with the spirits of the natural world. And I remember I had seen a lot of devastation take place on their land. From wars, I was seeing deer that were malnourished. I was seeing fires. I was having visions of women screaming and children running. And the owners had asked, what could we do to remedy that? And I sat in ceremony with those elders, and they asked me to place a black cohosh plant and to do some healing work on the land. And I remember doing so, and there were a few with us. And after we did that, they owned about 17 acres. But I remember after they did that, there was flute music playing. And I turned to the owners / publishers. And I said, you don't have a house near you. They said, not for 17 miles. We all heard the flute music. It was coming out of the ethers.
Wow, that's amazing.
That
is amazing. That's wow. I was seeing here if we have any questions from the audience so far. If anybody has any questions, and thank you, Jason, for posting the book. You guys can get the book on Amazon. Here, it's here's the link. Divine Nature of Plants, Wisdom Keepers. What plants do you like to work with the most, would you say?
I think it depends on the time we're in and what I'm working through and the environment I'm in. So here in New York City, dandelion's a favorite of mine, as well as hibiscus, especially at this time. I really like it.
Yeah. I was going to say dandelion, I know works good with the liver. And then, and it's
Absolutely.
funny, like there's a guy that I work with. He's one of my affiliates. He works with Amanita muscaria, which is like the red and white mushroom, but it's like, It doesn't really have like psychedelic properties, but it has like more, I would say, like relaxing properties, maybe put you in the flow state. Well, he just made a hibiscus mix. He does one.
Wow.
It's like hibiscus. It comes out blood red. It's a spray. He makes them as like alchemized amanita sprays, And then he also does. He has one with monoatomic gold. He has one with kava. I'm trying to think. Blue lotus. It's pretty interesting for sure. But like hibiscus is like really healing, right? There's a lot of different.
Absolutely, especially in this hot weather, we can all use it. It's also very grounding and nourishing. Plants change like we do. They have a lineage. They have an epigenetic thread. So when we're going through trauma, plants will step up to the plate and they'll pull in their resource from their evolutionary history and their plant lineage history. And they will adopt to any kind of challenge or patterning that we're struggling through.
That's fascinating. Did you ever hear about someone say that you can spit into a seed, or when you plant a seed, you're supposed to spit into the seed and then you plant it and then supposedly it will grow and it will give you everything you need to heal yourself? Did you ever hear that before?
I've never heard of the spitting, but I agree with that premise, and I share that all the time, that sometimes there's that one signature plant that you develop a close bond with, and it will give you everything you need. Wow. Everything. And I find that being dandelion for me.
Yeah. So can dandelion be that powerful then, pretty much, or you said?
I think the relationship between the person and the plant is what's powerful.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I asked you that is I kind of asked for myself because I was diagnosed with this is from mainstream medical, which I don't really like to believe in mainstream medical, but I mean, if I have a broken arm, I'll go to them, you know what I mean? But I'll mix it sometimes, mainstream mixed with holistic, but like they told me that I have a non-alcoholic fatty liver, so people have told me to take milk thistle, dandelion, I take this supplement called Tudka, which is interesting.
I was just going to say Tudka would be really good for you.
Yeah, I take it now. I have some. It's down here somewhere. I have it for sure. I still don't understand what Tudka does, but I know it makes me feel better.
Bile salts. So Tudka, castor oil packs. Add the burdock.
So supplements too. You don't just know plants. You seem like you know like a lot about supplements as well. So you would say you're really into health, I guess?
I am.
Wow, that's awesome. What other supplements are really good to know about nowadays, would you say?
I think it depends on what's going on. Let me think about what's on a lot of people are exploring peptides right now.
Yeah, that's a big one, right?
So,
I've heard about that as well.
Yeah. Peptides, prebiotics, microbiome, and neuroprotectors. So for the microbiome, butyrates are really important for intestinal lining and rebuilding that gut. So it's not just about probiotics, and everybody thinks when their gut is kind of off, a probiotic will fix it. And sometimes I've seen that when people start to experiment with different strains and different flora, They can have emotional responses to them. Some people get depressed, some people get a little hyper. And so it's really about building the gut microbiome. Again, butyrates are really great. Mastic gum is really great for little pathogens that are not kind of going away.
Wow, this is fascinating. Let me see what other questions I had for you here. Okay, one of the questions was back to like your psychic abilities and stuff. Like, in your view, how is illness connected to unresolved spiritual or ancestral issues? Does this go back to the epigenetics, would you say?
Can you ask that again? There was a glitch.
I said, in your view, how is illness connected to unresolved spiritual or ancestral issues? And I'm guessing, would this go back to the epigenetics, or is
Yes,
something else?
it would absolutely. Also, I look at illness a little differently. You know, sometimes there are transgenerational pattern shifters in every family. And so when illness is meant to happen, I think our society looks at illness as not a positive thing. But an illness holds space for change. There's a story with every illness. There's a lineage with every illness, and there's also evolution with every illness. How an illness evolves, we think that the word cure means to physically cure, or the word heal means to physically heal. As far as I'm concerned, the word healing means to spiritually heal. If the body does not heal physically, the spirit can still heal, but perhaps the body needs to kind of cave in and not be well so that other factors can move through it.
Yeah, it's a good point. What I was going to say was, wait, what was it? I had a total, wait, this is important.
Sure.
That happens sometimes. Sorry, that happens to me sometimes. Yes. I know exactly what I was going to ask you. So you talked about spiritual healing. Have you had experience with like entity attachments and stuff? Because the reason why I preface that is because I had a wild entity attachment, honestly, for like 3 months, and it was like hard to get anybody to believe me, but it was real. It was like a real, and it wasn't like I saw ghosts or like I saw the demons or anything like that. It was more just like an energy that I could sense that
I've taught classes on spirit attachment.
Yeah.
You can find anybody to believe you?
I mean, I have a lot. I have a lot of friends who were like, I have a lot of friends who are energy healers and stuff, and they tried to help me. They tried to clear it, and it just kept coming back. And now,
because that relationship with the spirit is probably not complete yet.
Well, yeah, because I was going to say I can even feel it sometimes in my back. So like it seems like it nests in my back or something. Like it doesn't have like control over me because still have my thoughts and stuff. Like but like I have to discern a lot about. But like it definitely is. It definitely feels like it's sometimes still there.
Yeah. There are reasons that spirits attach. Again, some of it's epigenetic, ancestral, a lineage. There is trauma that allows them to attach. There is collective trauma, like during the pandemic, when people are ungrounded. It could be that you're walking through a haunted house and a spirit comes and just attaches to you. And so then with every client that comes with a spirit attachment, I have to discern the relationship between that person and the spirit and try to understand what purpose is that attachment serving. Is it time for that spirit to move to another realm? Or is there a reason and a time frame and a season for that spirit to be there? So again, what is it trying to teach you? Is there a reason it's staying? I always ask a client, it's like having a friend that may not be healthy. What do you have to gain with this friendship or with this relationship?
Yeah. That's interesting.
You try to figure out why it's there. And that's how you work with it. And then when that's figured out and you've done your inner work, that's when the spirit has no more. It's like feeding a rabid dog. When you finally stop putting food out, it won't come around. It'll feed somewhere else.
Wow. So it's like it's something that I'm doing that makes sense. Now,
well, I'm careful. I'm not blaming you or blaming anybody. There's a pattern that's keeping it in place.
Yeah, that
and
makes sense.
It could be a pattern from your grandmother or grandfather. It could be, I've seen them being passed down from generation to generation.
Yeah. That's interesting. Speaking of inner work, you've spoken about shadow work in the past. How do you integrate darkness and light within your spiritual practice, would you say?
Very respectfully. Very respectfully. There's a balance, and in the new age of spirituality, I think after 2000, people were all love and light and not wanting to talk about darkness or evil. But evil exists, like yin and yang. It serves a purpose as much as the light. And when darkness evolves to a still point, it's defined and perceived differently than human understanding.
I love that. That's interesting. Yeah. So yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. Let me see here. There's some. We had a comment from the chat. This is from Cosmic Voices. He says, "Everything begins in the spirit realm. Healing begins here, there, then manifests in the physical." Would you agree with that?
Yes. As above, so below.
Yeah. And then how can someone begin listening to their intuition and differentiating it from trauma or fear? Would you say I thought that was a good question.
I ask people to take a journal, and sometimes, I hear this from people saying, I received a message or I received guidance. And I always say, don't follow it immediately. Let it come to you a few times. And even if it's coming down from trauma, it will still lead you somewhere. But don't always act or react when you first hear something or see something or receive a sign, because you don't know where it's coming from.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. And do you quoted something about the medicine of the unseen. Can you share an experience of what is that? The medicine of the unseen.
Trying to think of a story to tell you. Just bear with me.
You seem like you have a lot of cool stories. Like you said,
my gosh!
I podcast with you with these stories. Like maybe we should do that. Like I don't know. Like because like I was trying to give you like a really good interview, so like you get a good amount of questions out there, so people can see that you're well rounded. But I'd love to hear your stories too. Like I love that's what I.
Well, these stories. Thank you. When I teach a class, I tend to share stories so people can. Before I tend to share theory, because I want people to understand that there sometimes is no rhyme or reason to the spirit world or evolution, because everybody, there are these, again, new age thoughts that you can attract money, you can do this, you can do that. So what happens when that doesn't happen and people are visualizing? What happens when I've been to Guatemala, I've been to Belize, I've watched kids starve. So did they deserve that? Was that their karma? I look at the words karma, laws of attraction. I take those theories very lightly, because I think we humanize and form thoughts based on our own attachment and trauma when it comes to spirituality, as opposed to possibly what the divine has for us. And so the unseen, I have seen and witnessed. Another story I like. I remember I was in my 20s and I was at a fair, and walking on the grounds, and spirit whispered in my ear, bow your head. I was like, bow my head, why? I said, I'm at a fairground. It's like having a conversation. They're like, bow your head. There's a holy person that's coming near you. And I'm like, bow my head. And I'm like, what holy person? I said, there's a lot of people here. I'm trying to have this telepathic conversation while also trying to stay grounded. And all of a sudden, this wind just hit me. And I saw this elderly woman. I think she must have been almost 90. And she was hunched over, looked like severe osteoporosis, with a cane, was walking probably about an inch here, an inch there. And her face was just laden and heavy. It was so sweet, but laden and heavy with such suffering. And I remember seeing a plethora of souls around her. probably at least 30 souls from her generation and giving her medicine, putting their hands on her arm, holding her back, carrying her. And she was a transgenerational pattern shifter. She held that space for the suffering in her lineage. And yet, in turn, they were providing her with spiritual and emotional medicine.
Wow.
It was so beautiful. I just remember making the sign of the cross over and over and thanking God for letting me bear witness to this. She was a bodhisattva. She was an enlightened being.
Wow. Did you think she knew she was an enlightened being?
I don't know. I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Wow. You know, I mean, there can be people like that. You know, I feel like sometimes with like age comes enlightenment, you know, like that. Like, if you get like a more elderly person that's seen things, you know, like not just has the intellectual book smarts, but has like the street smarts and like the spiritual knowledge, and it's all wrapped into one, you know. And sometimes when you come across someone like that, they can really be, I guess, naturally enlightened. Would you agree? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it does. I don't think it has to be elderly. I mean, a lot of kids that are autistic or born incredibly ill their frequency is so high. I see Sally, I'm getting chills too. Their frequency is so high. And again, I just make the sign of the cross and give thanks to God for them being here.
Yeah. I started showing some of the comments. This one's from Rocky Mountain Skywatcher. He says, "Been listening. That is an incredible moment you were given." I think so too. You know, like
thank you. Yes,
it happens to people like you who are spiritually tapped in, so you can see that and you kind of witness that. Like, you know, like so for example, like here's me. For example, like, you know, like I honestly, like my dad died when I was 21, and he had like prostate cancer. You know,
I'm
and
so
like
sorry.
He died like a wicked death, you know, because he was in Vietnam and shit, you know. And I don't remember him ever coming back to me. And then I've had ex-girlfriends die of overdoses and like other shit, you know. And like nobody's ever come back. You know what I mean? Like nobody's ever come back to, like, you know what I mean? Like nobody.
Do you know, like, for sure they haven't come back?
Well, I think I had a dream about my dad one time, you know, or a couple times, but like, you know, like I don't think anybody, you know, like I you know, especially I had two ex-girlfriends die. One died of cancer and one died. I mean, like I wasn't with them at the time. They just happened to pass away. You know, like when my one ex-girlfriend died of an overdose, and then the other one died of cancer most recently. And like, you know, they didn't come back, and I was pretty close with both of them, you know, like up to a point where like we were like friends from high school and stuff like that, you know. So I thought, like, you know, like maybe they would. So I've been like kind of skeptical of like the afterlife, but like then I meet someone like you who's like been in touch with spirit their whole life, and I'm like, well, this has to exist. I'm open-minded enough to like see it. I'm just not getting it for myself. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I think you could get it for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think I do have something that talks to me. It's almost like a voice in my head. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm not like a schizophrenic and I hear voices. Not like that. I mean, like it's a voice that like tells me things, like almost like you could say spirit does, but like I don't know what it is or where it's coming from. You know what I mean?
I think you have to have a little more faith, Rob.
Yeah,
I can feel your father around. I hope your listeners can. I think you have to have a little more faith.
Wow. And then were you raised Catholic? Because
yes, I was. Yes, I was raised Catholic. And interestingly enough, and he's deceased, so I can share it now. One of my mentors was a Catholic priest who was also psychic, but kept it very quiet.
Wow. So did you stay Catholic, or would you say you're more spiritual now?
I don't know how to answer that question because I don't know if there's a difference. Having studied shamanism and mystical Christianity, I just define myself as Christian, I think.
Oh, that's cool. No, that's cool. And, you know, because a lot of people, like, they'll be raised Christian or whatever you want to say, Islam, Judaism, and then they kind of go away from it because they encounter spirituality, and they'll say, you'll hear people say, I'm spiritual, you know, and that doesn't necessarily have to be new agey, you know what I mean? Just like,
no, I agree with you. And I actually suggest that people go back to the tradition they were born in, because there was a reason they were born in this lifetime with that tradition, because there's medicine there for them. It doesn't mean they can't embrace other traditions by any means. Like I've
I
studied other
noticed that
traditions.
you mentioned Christian mysticism. I noticed there's a lot of interesting stuff in Christian mysticism, same as Sufi Islam and
Absolutely.
the Kabbalah in Judaism. You know, I was raised like my dad was Lebanese, so like but I
Oh,
wasn't.
really?
Yeah, yeah, I was like, yeah, it's like real big here in Pittsburgh. There's a lot of Lebanese, and then my mom's Greek and Italian. So my dad
Oh,
was like
wow.
Orthodox Christian, and my mom
Yep.
was Roman Catholic. So it was like similar things growing up.
It is. I seem to resonate more with the Orthodox Christianity than Catholicism. I think my priest used to say that. He said you have more behavior similar to Orthodox Christianity.
It's more strict, it seems like, right? Or it's more like the original form of it. It seems like. I don't know. Yeah,
I think they both were. They both were.
yeah. It's interesting. Have you ever been to Italy? Did you ever go to Italy?
No, no. It's a question people ask me. I have not yet.
Wow. But you got to travel all over a lot of other places. You said you went to South America and stuff.
I was in Belize and Guatemala. I was in Germany and East Germany before the wall came down, and a few other places in Europe when I was younger.
That's really interesting, and yeah, I'm really interested in culture and stuff too. So tell us a little bit more about your book. Like I want to get the audience to get a good idea for it. Like, what can people expect if they buy your book, and like what are we looking at here?
The one thing that I've heard over the years, again, it's the third iteration, is that they can feel the energies jump off the pages. So I'd like people first to read the story and get an idea of how plant spirit medicine and shamanism works, about how to, because they'll read how I cultivated, or one of the ways in which I cultivated a relationship with the plant spirits and the medicines. And then I share some theory on plant medicine and the 30 plants that I actually grew in my backyard here in New York City. And there's another funny story about that. I remember getting them as seedlings, and they were about this high. And my neighbors live very close to me. And I went out every day with my rattle and my sage and my song and my prayer. And I would sing and talk to them. And I had this little old lady next door to me who would look out her window, and she'd just look at me like I was crazy. And within 2 weeks, those plants grew about 2 feet. They
Wow,
were
that's
so
amazing.
incredibly happy. And yeah, yeah, they're amazing. Plants are amazing. Trees are amazing.
Yeah, by the way, this is a side note, but I got to introduce you to my friend Rock Castaldo. You mentioned you're from New York City. He's from Rockville. Him and his wife lived there with their daughter, but he was born with inside the call. Like he's Sicilian, and he's the one that I told you he has a background in Strega, and he was born with the call around his neck. So he's also,
Okay, yep,
you know what I mean? Like he has a YouTube
definitely.
stuff like that. Yeah, he does like a mystical and gem shop, like like crystals and crystal skulls and stuff like that. But yeah, but
He has his own store out in Long Island.
it's more he does more like an online business, but then he has all the inventory at his house. Like it's in
Got
I
it.
think he lives in like Rockville, but I think he told me Rockville. He said it's real close to the Bronx.
Okay.
But it's outside. It's like right outside the city. You know what I mean? Supposedly,
Yep.
you know where he lives. He always goes. He always tells me he goes to the Giant Rock. If you know where the Giant Rock is in New York, and he charges his crystals there. It's like this giant megalithic rock in New York City. You know what I'm talking about?
Um, there might be more than one, because there's one on Orchard Beach as well. So there might be more than one.
Wow. Yeah, I've always been fascinated with New York my whole life. Like I feel like I'm meant to come there, like and matter of fact, I was just talking about doing like a meetup because I have like a group of people that watch my show that are all in the New York area. I have my friend Michelle, she's a vegan and she lives in her van in the city. And then I have my friend Rodica, she lives in Queens. Ra
Wow.
lives in Louisville. There's a lot of people that like around the
You
city that
should. Yeah, that'd be great.
it'd be cool to get like a group. Yeah, I think that'd be really cool. Yeah,
I'm
but
impressed by your friend who lives in a van.
dude, she told me I didn't mean to call you dude. I know you're. I'd say that to
I'm
everybody.
okay. I'm good with Jude. I'm a New Yorker. We're good.
She told me that like a lot of people in New York are doing it now because Because here's what she said. She said because the rent in New York has gotten really high. And I saw her van. So that conference that I just went to in Florida where I was just at, I went to it last year, and she was my Michelle was my roommate last year. I had two roommates, her and then this other guy, Carl. But like at one point she took me down to her van and she was showing me, I'm only 5'7". She's maybe 5'4", and she has this huge black van, and it's all done in like, it's the whole inside's redone. Like she has a bed in there, and like, it's like she has the whole thing redone. And she told me, she said a lot of people in New York are doing that because the rent's like really high.
Nice.
Yeah. So talk a little bit more about your book. Like anything else you'd want to share that you think would be interesting. I know we said we weren't going to do that long, but like we've only been going about 40 minutes. We could probably do another 5 minutes if you want to promote the book more. Like,
sure. I think it's a great introduction to basic shamanism and plant medicine. There's going to be an oracle deck that's coming out in November based on the book.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool.
So I'm very excited about that, and I wrote the booklet to that. I want to, again, help people. The focus of the book is to help people establish a relationship with the earth and with plant medicine. That's the real focus.
It's amazing. And do you agree with grounding? Do you feel like grounding can be very beneficial? And if someone were to ground, how long do you think they should ground for?
I think it depends on the person. It depends. If there's somebody that's ungrounded, they might need a little longer than the person who's pretty strongly grounded. But grounding is very important for spleen energy, for liver and gallbladder, for organs, for digestion, for mental health.
Wow, this is so amazing. And I was just going to see if you could tell us maybe one more cool story before we finish up, like,
Sure.
like about your psychic journey.
Absolutely. I remember in my 30s, a friend of mine, unfortunately, her husband was also in his early 30s and dying of cancer. And she asked me to come over her house and see if I could help him. And I made a home visit. And I went into his room. I think he was 31 or 32. And at that time, he was unconscious. And I remember the mother and I think a nurse's assistant was there. And they were uncomfortable with somebody like me. And so we're going back over 20 years. And they were uncomfortable with somebody like me. They didn't believe in somebody like me. And I held his hand. And through telepathy, his eyes were shut. Through telepathy, I was telling the wife who was in the room what the husband was saying to me. I said, you had this conversation about this and this and that. I said, there's these other people in the room that I'm seeing. And she didn't know who they were. And when I left, he woke up and waved to me, and that freaked me out, and went back into kind of an unconscious mode. And he passed a few days later. And when I went to the wake, the wife grabbed me and said, he woke up that night and said, did you hear everything I told Laura to tell you?
Wow. Holy shit. Yeah. That's insane. Yeah. So all in all, you've witnessed some pretty amazing things throughout your life in the psychic realm, you would say.
They could fill a book. Absolutely. They could fill another book.
Wow. Well, this was amazing. Well, I was just seeing, could you tell people like how they can follow you and how they can get your books and like anything you want to promote? And this was amazing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. My website's www.lauraaversano.com. You'll see my books there, but books you can buy anywhere. Amazon, Inner Traditions are the publishers. And I'm on Facebook. I recently started Instagram, but I don't keep up with it. So I'm on Facebook. Most people tend to follow my personal page, Laura Aversano, which kind of connects with my professional page, Laura Aversano Spiritwalker. But you can find me there.
Yeah, I'm gonna follow you now on Instagram. Yeah, like and I'll check out your
Facebook,
website.
Though I don't do a lot on Instagram. I do a lot of posting on Facebook. I'm kind of
I'll connect you on Facebook. Yeah, that definitely. Yeah, that's cool. I'm on Facebook too. Yeah. Matter of fact, we went live. We're live on Facebook now too, because like
awesome.
I did do. Yeah. So thank you so much, Laura. I'm sorry about the rocky start, but I think this turned out really good, and I'm going to put out the audio later. So yeah, thank you so much. And
oh, Rob, it was great meeting you, and I do hope you get to New York.
Yeah, thank you, and have a good night. And yeah, I'm going to be live again in a couple minutes, so I'll see you guys in a little bit. And Laura, it was so nice to meet you. You're amazing.
You too. Thank you. We'll talk again soon, Rob.
All right, good night. Bye.
Take care. Good night.
I'm going to end this now. Sorry, guys.